You've probably heard me refer to midlife as an awakening to our changing bodies, the stories that no longer seem to fit, and an awareness that there is something more to life than we've been led to believe. My own journey has led me into the esoteric and the spiritual as part of that process. And my guest today, Deanna Devine, has been walking that path for over 25 years. Her awakening has been a period of deep unraveling that has reshaped how she sees life, purpose, and creation. She's a soul guide, galactic shaman, quantum activator, and the author of Mastering Quantum Creation. Today, we're going to explore spiritual awakening, manifestation, and what it can look like to consciously co-create your reality through the quantum field. Thank you so much for joining me, Deanna. We had a little quick chat before we hit record, so I know that we're not going to be short of things to talk about, but I feel like I'm a little bit out
Absolutely.
of my depth with some of this stuff. So I'm really curious to hear you share your wisdom, and I'm really grateful to have you in this space today.
Thank you so much, Nadine. I'm really excited to be here as well.
Do you want to kick us off with a little intro of yourself and a bit about your story? Pick and choose the bits that you feel like might be relevant for today, but just to kick us off and sort of set the scene.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people asking me, they're like, when did you wake up to your gifts? And for me, I feel it's been a gradual process, but I had some moments in life, and I wasn't born in US, actually. I was born in Soviet Union, and I moved to Israel when I was 10 years old. And I actually grew up in Israel during very chaotic times. So now we've seen, part of the world, the Middle East, kind of blowing up. And for me, it's like I'm watching and observing. It's like a repeat pattern because I was there as 11-year-old self with a gas mask during Gulf War, during, that whole invasion. And so I've faced a lot of, difficult moments, a lot of death, to be honest. And I think those were really powerful moments. When I was 14 years old, I was on a bus stop in my town, and this voice within me told me to leave the area. And I left, luckily listened. There was a lot of resistance, grabbed my friend, and the bus stop blew up. It was
Oh
the
my
first bus
goodness.
bombing in Israel in 1994. So there's a lot of things happening that I think started making me question, who am I? What was that voice? What are those unseen realms? What am I understanding, not understanding? Kind of pushed me out, came here to United States, over 30 years ago to visit my grandparents. I wanted to stay. I wanted to get out of that polarized environment, even though it was so beautiful from one perspective, but I did feel the tension, right? And the tension hasn't stopped. It's still there. It's resolving itself. And yeah, and I've been exploring. I think I've just been a fearless explorer of self, of consciousness. I've done so many things. I went into shamanic route, exploring plant medicine work. I became a Reiki master. I just, I was as I was exploring what is here and traveling the world in over 50 countries, I also started exploring like what are the other realms? Like, and the plant medicine was a great way with ayahuasca medicine, mushroom medicine, spent a lot of time in the jungles in Peru and Amazon, exploring those, I would say, levels of reality that we don't necessarily perceive with the mind, but we all have access to. And in the process, I did come to a place where actually the medicine of ayahuasca, which is this, very earthly medicine that's been here for thousands of years, she's the one who was like, you're complete. It's time to go galactic. And I was like, what is galactic? She's like, you're complete with the earthly work. You understand the rituals and all the things, but it's time to open up to something new. At the time, I didn't know what that means. But then a year later, I was not doing any psychedelics anymore. And I had an experience in the mountains where this experience happened when this voice came through, and I started toning and making these incredible sounds. And I saw these geometries. And this is what many know today as light language, or what I call as source language, is this multidimensional frequency, and it has a language, it has tones, it's very multifaceted. And I've been super passionate on activating for others, helping others to reconnect it. And many of us think like, oh, we are born, without gifts, so therefore, like, we're not psychic, we can't open it. In my journey, it's all been about like, opening a new doorway, things that 10 years ago, if you asked me that I'm going to be reading Akashic records for people on where they come from and looking at this whole blueprint and seeing them on different planets in this galaxy and beyond, or channeling this incredible frequencies from all kinds of star systems, I would laugh at your face. I would be like, me? No, no way. But, as talking about midlife, I feel as I'm in my birthday is tomorrow, actually. So I'm
Ah, mine's
definitely
next
in
week.
the midlife. Oh, so you're an Aries sister
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
well. Beautiful. Yeah, so in this, I do feel this midlife influx moment in time and space right now, in this incarnation, but just in general as a being, galactic being, universal being. Because now I remember everything. I wrote in my book. I have access to all my main imprints that I know and my other aspects. And it's been a beautiful journey of reclamation of the self, of my power, of my trust in self, and understanding this is just one glimpse of reality, right? There's just one experience I'm having, but there's so many other experiences through space and time, and I can interact with those experiences as well. And so it becomes really beautiful, humbling, and heart-oriented journey where it's all about co-creation, collaboration, helping others, doing these healings remotely, quantumly, and understanding that quantum is a field of information and in everything and nothing at the same time. But within this quantum field of potentiality, we have access to create reality. And so what we're remembering is that we are master quantum creators. We created this planetary system, so to speak, this realm. We don't even fully know what this is. We created these different reality bubbles and the nebulas, the stars, and our experiences here. And so as we start owning to that, I get really passionate to give people permission slip and say, no, you're not a victim of circumstances. It's actually us all co-creating this together. And that's what my book is about, just remembering that these things are available. There's expansion that can happen. First, we remember, then we expand in our field, we reclaim it, and then we really step into mastery. But mastery has always been ours from just the get-go of who we are. It feels from human side that it's linearly, but everything is very multidimensional, and we are these incredible multidimensional quantum beings.
Oh, wow. Where do we go? That's
Where do we go from
where do
here?
we go from here? Um, I've, as my own personal, as I mentioned in the intro, my own personal journey has certainly opened me up, my midlife awakening, and I feel like partly I was drinking alcohol and I stopped drinking alcohol about 4 years ago, and I really sort of that was a big step in just seeing things and experiencing things differently. But I certainly feel like I'm still on kind of a learning curve, like, and it's taken you 25 years to come to this point, so there is a learning process, and it's, I guess, partly an inner knowing, or like a seeking for what it is. It's just like this continual, yeah, itch that needs to be scratched. But I feel like I don't know very much at all. Like when I hear you talk about some of the things that you just mentioned, yeah, I am a real beginner in this space. Can you talk a bit more about 5D consciousness and the quantum realm and all of those things, so that if there's someone in a position where they are a complete beginner, we've heard of quantum physics, but barely any of us probably
Right.
know what that is. But what does that all mean for us? And is it something that's
Yeah,
relevant to
great
all of
question.
us?
And the reason why we use quantum, it's almost like became a sexy word, is because I think science is trying to explain nature of reality.
Uh,
And it's still figured it out. I think the classical physics, the Newtonian physics, everyone would agree at this point is not applicable. It's it's very linear. Quantum is just more multidimensional. So, we are trying to explain what is this field of information that we call quantum, right? There is essentially, quantum is like an ocean, right? And within the ocean, there's waves. And you can think of information. So let's just zoom out, the source, God, whatever you want to call it, right? It wanted to experience itself. So it experienced itself by essentially fragmenting itself through space and time into so many universes. And within the universes, we have so many galaxies. But all of those are just distortions and fractals of the main source of this ocean of information, right? And within this ocean of information, if you think of the waves, that's how information is traveling. It's very fluid. And within this fluidity, when the information starts solidifying, it can break from the wave into what we call the particle. So we are actually particles.
Okay.
We are essentially manifestation of the physical of this information into physicality. But this body is like, a computer. It's the hardware. And our soul is the software. It's what essentially is running in this vessel, in this computer. But the computer is temporary, right? It's like we buy a Mac and then in a couple of years, it's no longer good and the processing power is really slow and you're going to replace it. This temporary vessel that we are hosted in is temporary as well because it has its aging process. And there are new actually fields of science that are emerging right now in quantum physics. Now you have quantum biology. So in quantum biology, the scientists are learning about the cells and how our system is actually operating together. So it's a very interconnected, interwoven system that communicates. But essentially, what is quantum? Quantum also means light. So like within the DNA, now they see there's light particles, biophotonic emissions that are happening. So this computer, so to speak, this vessel is receiving information from the field, from the solar activity, from the cosmos, because we are going through a photonic belt right now. So there's a lot of light particles there. So they kind of bombarding us. We get in all this activation from the solar maximum because the sun right now is it's like highest capacity. So each time there's a geomagnetic storm, we're receiving more gamma rays, we're getting more radiation, which is basically light. So this vessel is starting to kind of upgrade itself a bit, I would say. So like when people are having what they call ascension symptoms or like headaches or fatigues, this computer is just slow. It's just still like trying to pick up on the software that was years ahead because it's much more interconnected. So quantum physics talks about different understandings of reality. One of them, for instance, that I love is called quantum entanglement. And the quantum entanglement essentially means that there's one particle here and another particle here. And when one particle acts in a certain way, the other particle mirrors it exactly. And it doesn't matter where that particle is. There's no real time and space because that's an illusion of its own. So when I get on a Zoom and I do these incredible healings on someone, no matter where they are in the world, Australia, you name it, I can feel what they're feeling. I can recalibrate and clear their energy system. I can do hypnosis on them. I can do all the transmissions and channelings for them because I become like them. I become that particle, and that's quantum entanglement. And they now doing a lot of incredible scientific studies to prove quantum entanglement. Actually, just posted on my Instagram a really cool video where I saw that they actually measured that it takes like not nanosecond, but there's like a specific number of. It's not instantaneous, like it does take a little time to actually entangle. It's like hook in,
Okay.
so to speak, to the other particle, and then it can be entangled. And I've been experiencing this real time, like with people, like it takes a few seconds or so sometimes to fully connect, right? And so now they, doing very intricate detailed studies on it, which is really cool because essentially the science is trying to explain esoterics. It's trying to explain what we're already feeling, how we experience it, but it's validated. It's validating that, oh wow, there is like, measurement to it. And a lot of this is also through the observer effect. So, which means this particle acts in a certain way because it's being observed. And they've done all kinds of experiments where, double slit experiment, many other experiments where these particles act one way, but when someone observes it, it acts in a different way. And so this whole reality is really about the observer. And so how does that apply to our life? So if we are stepping out of a victim story of, or poor me, or like in this broken record, I'm disempowered, I can only do so much, this is what it is. What we, know that when we have experiences, whether it's from plant medicine or some other experiences, breath work, where we can actually step out of our story and see ourselves from a different perspective, we become the observer, we become the witness to our story. And that's where we start observing some other aspects of our lives or our behaviors and reactions. And I call this whole reality is like game of consciousness. So what does that mean? So my kid, he plays Roblox, this video games, and I love watching him do it. Sometimes it's very fast. These kids are like, whew, and their hypercomputing, these children's hypercomputing powers are so much faster. This new generation is like more upgraded than our generation, the way they process information. But what they do, they like the games because also the speediness of it, but also the ability to like change suits, so here we are in each incarnation, right? And certain lessons we want to learn and challenges as well, right? And as we go through life, we also inherit a lot of these outdated programs. Some of them come from ancestors, some of them come from just the environment with that, the social programming. And so I feel like where as you grow and you start coming to this awakening, you stop and you start re-examining and you notice, and then you're running these background program, meaning they run in the background without you consciously even being aware. So what's the goal of this game? The goal of this game is like in the Truman Show, stepping out of that 9 to 5 rat race and start observing and noticing that, oh, wow, I actually can modify things. I now can maybe take a journey to my work, not the usual path I take, but maybe I'll drive around and get the scenic crowd. Maybe I can start breaking these little patterns in my life in a way that they don't serve me anymore. And this is the creative aspect of the working with the quantum field, where there is this field of potentialities, right, of these particles. And so the other really cool term in quantum physics called quantum superposition. So quantum superposition basically says there's many ballerinas, these particles spinning, but in different states. And so imagine we go into, show, we're watching these ballerinas, but all of us are paying attention and intention on this one ballerina we really like. And so what's happening, like in the ocean that I mentioned, and these waves of energy, it's building the standing wave because we all paying attention to that ballerina. That standing wave gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually that standing wave wins and all others collapse. So all ballerinas collapse and only one wins. How does that apply to this whole like 5D, right, new earth reality, whatever everyone calls? It just means that time is an illusion, but yet we get to choose still what we call the highest timeline. And if all of us are choosing that, we build in that standing wave. It's all through free will and through choices of creation. And so it takes us, in our personal life, that's how manifestation works as well. We have to have a certain intention. We have to be in a certain emotional state. We have to keep on feeding our standing wave until it hits the threshold and universe co-creates with you and manifests that into physicality for you. But it really starts in the field of information where there's so many potentialities, but you have to choose which potentiality you actually want, and you have to kind of anchor into that potentiality. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So there's like a bit of an art and physics and all of that when it comes to, who's a good manifest and not a good manifest. I think we're still learning. And I feel these skills, like we had these skills in ancient times. We were all, you know, many of us been here for a while. Let's say we had many incarnations here during Dark Ages. We just coming out of 12,000 years of, you know, dense times. So we just starting to scratch the surface and we're remembering like our true powers. And I feel in the high dimensions and what I'm observing, I mean, they just think about it and it happens, right? It
Okay.
doesn't require any effort. Here we're still in this density reality where we have to do and do and do, put some actions. We're still learning this whole manifestation game, but ultimately it's all about being conscious player. So if you are putting your, taking off one set of glasses and putting the real glasses on and starting to see how this game operates, then you start making choices differently. And I think that's really the key for each person, is to see those patterns, break those traumas, those things that are not no longer serving. So there's space to now to create new reality, new potentials. Hope that was easy enough to understand.
It was amazing. Um, I, well, there's lots of things that I could ask. There was, but I'm just like, want to sort of pluck out a couple of the things that you said and just ask whether I'm on the right track with it. So the first one was about mirroring, because you said that we mirror the, I don't even remember the language you used, but you
I
mentioned
think you're talking
mirroring.
about quantum entanglement. It's not so
Quantum
much mirroring, we
entanglement.
connect.
Okay,
It's
because I was just
connections,
sort of wondering
threads
whether,
of connection.
okay, because when we see things in our reality that kind of affirm our experience. So if we've got if we're living in a sort of low vibrational state, then the things that we experience and the people we come across will reflect that back. Is that part of that process?
That's part of that too.
Okay.
Yeah. The entanglement itself just means we are interconnected, right?
Yes.
We're in this
Okay.
universal time matrix. Everything is kind of one, it's interconnected, but we can also entangle like consciously to something we can lock in, so to speak. But yes, the people that in our life or mirroring, as you say, or project
Yeah.
for, because this is also holographic reality, right? It's all through projection, right? So it's the state you in. I think what you're trying to say is like, if you wake up and you're having a shitty day, you can continue going to your work all grumpy, and everything is going to continue cascading through your day, reflecting back the state of consciousness and emotions you at. Your frequency, bandwidth, as I call it, is mirroring, yes, to you, because you are also putting that into the field. And it's through your nervous system, it's through the anxiety in your field, it's through your grumpiness, all of those emotional incoherent states. When you're in coherence, which means the brain and the heart are synchronized and you put in much more stable field, you are also opening your heart chakra, you magnetize into yourself, because your heart is a huge magnet, over 50 feet and more. And you have Merkaba, which is another sacred chapter. Anyway, this field is very beautiful and complex, but it's magnetic, electromagnetic. So when it's stable field and not erotic and chaotic, when you're not feeling great, you able, yes, to put out that signal out there, and all of a sudden all kinds of interesting miracles are happening and people coming into your life and unexpected. So you're now on this flow of creation where there's no resistance. So ultimately that's what it is. It's energy times capacity divided by resistance. The more resistance you put into the field, the more it will reflect back to you. It's like, it's like push and pull game. And that's essentially what's happening in this third density to begin with. That's what war is about. It's resistance game. It's like, can I take your energy and give it back to you or not? It's like, who has more of that push and pull? But quantumly means we've stepped out of that. It's infinite, it's abundant, it's overflowing. There's no resistance, it just is. So the energy is just flowing through. It's easy, there's no
Mm.
effort involved, it's effortless. And therefore, the relationships are different too. So, I'm sure you know who is in that frequency because that relationship feels like push and pull. It's very transactional. It's not really fulfilling, right? It's kind of like many people out there operating from that consciousness state of suffering or victimization or whatever it might be. But those who are in much more heart-based coherence, they're much more about relationship. So it's a relationship-based type of interaction. It's very different, and it's not about receiving anything back from anyone really, because now you're overabundant. You have this magnetic field. You go into the store, you're just smiling. The field is large and expansive. You fill in the whole store with light. You just give in because you have it, right? And it's just and allowing the whole field of the store to recalibrate to your frequency, because now you're a creative being. You just like almost taking dominion of the space too with your frequency and vibration. So it's about expansion versus contraction.
Mm.
And that's how universe operates too. You know, it expands and expands and expands. It's learning, but then at some certain point, it kind of reached that threshold too, and it starts contracting back because it needs to learn so much. So, but it's like us learning the boundaries of our energy field, of what we're capable of. Some places we need to contract, some places we maybe consciously expand. And so these are the games that we consciously get to play when we realize our own inner state. It really starts with us, right? Because the war that's out there starts with a war within us. It's when the ego starts criticizing and it's like, oh, you're not worthy, you're not enough, all this, programs that we run with ourselves. When we finally merge and have that inner dialogue of co-creation, higher self, ego self, it's much more coherent. There's now war, no more war inside. It's just peace, and from that peaceful, very beautiful space, we get to to be here in different type of vibration and give to others as well.
Mm. Thank you for answering that question. It led me on to something else. Um, um,
Yes.
well, it was to do with what you were speaking about before and that other little thread that I wanted to follow. So we've talked about the mirroring, but also that when you were talking about the ballerinas and how if we put our attention on that one ballerina, it gets bigger and sort of grows in
Bigger, yeah.
intensity. Would you say that that is when we're looking at our external world as it is right now? There's some big stuff happening. With our attention focused on that, it gets bigger. Is that how it works? There's a lot of
In some
attention
ways,
on
yeah.
it.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of attention, and that's what they want.
Mm,
So let's say war, right?
yeah.
War wants attention. They want that toxic energy so we can, again, get polarized, choose sides, who's good, who's bad, all of that back to push and pull energy. Remember the polarization energy that is very much third. This is third density. That's the heavy density energy that we emerging out of and learning how. And so really the key is to really filter and discern your information. And
Mm,
so I don't watch the news at all.
yeah.
I
So,
mean, I'm very, very discerning about the
mm,
consumption of information, consumption of, what goes into my consciousness. And, you can stream, you can, watch a movie, but it's like you choosing what comes into you. You want to look into the news, go on Google and just glance you in the now or whatever, but not doom and scroll on TikTok, So it's choosing your vibrational state and what you consume in really matters, because then, yes, you are feeding that narrative. You get really over passionate, and there's different forces also here that you might not be aware, but there's different agendas, and that's exactly what they want. They want us to be reactive. Reaction creates that emotional loosh, that emotional fear vibration, that emotion, it's not coherent, it's not stable, it's chaotic. And what I'm talking is about response itself. So what's the difference between reaction and responding? It's like, you're driving in the morning and someone starts honking at you because they're in a rush, and then you just like, you see them, you're taking a deep breath, and you exhale out. The New Yorkers here would be like cursing,
Yeah.
cursing out. And I'm just smiling. I'm like, have a good blessed day. Like
Oh,
where that second is not going to change your life. But that, you see the difference? Like
yeah.
I'm not reacting. I am responding. I'm taking that pause in between, and creating what in quantum physics they call also quantum gaps, those in between states, those subliminal between states
Mm,
where we notice the inhale and exhale, right? The pauses in between, where it's not about like, being in this um, race of life. And so people need to pause and listen and reflect and notice. And this is why meditation works, or any type of meditation like thing. Like, you don't have to sit on a cushion, like breathe or just walk on the park and just observe, take that moment with yourself. It really matters. Otherwise you become, exactly like you said, distraction. You become victim of that noise,
mm,
right? It's all noise, literally. And within that noise, maybe some level of information and truth, but be discerning on what you consume, and just as discerning you are about what you eat in, right? What you put it in your body and how that digests. Information is about also absorption and digestion of within our consciousness, because our mind is often polluted with all of that nonsense, and they want us to get polluted. They want us to get us distracted and not pay attention. So that's why I think COVID was an interesting time, where they forced everyone to go inward.
yeah.
We had to be at homes, and it was fun for me to observe, because someone who's been on the path for a long time. Like, I've been watching a lot of people wake up and start doing yoga and meditation and things they never done before, and they all of a sudden like having these epiphanies and start channeling and all of that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly, in some ways it was a rough time, but it also helped people to really start seeing the truth and question the narrative. I think that's ultimately what consciousness is about. Is like, who am I? What's my purpose here? Like, that's usually the questions people come to me for,
Yeah.
or like help get that guidance, or continuous curiosity and questioning is really what is required. So you don't accept the status quo. And I think at this point, people are starting to really wake up to the fact that everything we've been spoon fed is a lie anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So many questions. So many questions.
Nadina's like, where do I go
Where
now?
next? Um, okay. So I had something and then it went, ah. So the this idea or practice of becoming more conscious, more awareness and stepping out of ourselves. I'm kind of curious how for you, like you've obviously been doing this for a very long time. You've talked about being able to sort of go to different realms within your consciousness. Do you go there physically as well? Does your body go
No,
there or
no,
no? Okay. How
not
do
the body.
you,
It's imagination. It's
yeah,
all through
but it's,
imagination.
yeah, but it sounds like it's much more real than just your imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like having a dream.
Okay.
You having
Yeah.
a dream,
Yeah.
Nadine, and it feels real, right? So
Yeah.
you do go there. I take people there through hypnotherapy.
Okay.
It is real. Yeah.
So I'm really curious about how your that process and those different levels of consciousness that you experience and how you bring those back into today's world, like your everyday life.
Yeah, and I think it's a very valid question, because having this experience, it just gives you perspective. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, this life is what matters the most.
Mm.
So, for instance, I do, um, hypnotherapy for many. It's what's called quantum healing hypnosis, where I take people through their past lives. It's like a
Okay.
journey we go on, and then I invite their higher self for a conversation as well, and they come with questions. So I ask their higher self to answer the questions, so they get guidance directly from themselves, not even from me, which is usually, I think, the best source. And And so how is it relevant, right? How these past lives are relevant to today. And
Mm.
and it is because in each one you get some sort of lesson, some sort of learning about yourself or parts of yourself or the potentials that are out there. And and like I said, it's a discovery of self. So if you had certain phobia, let's say, and you couldn't understand why do you have it, like where is this coming from? Is this from my childhood? Is it from somewhere else? And whether it's to hypnotherapy or my Akashic records, I'm seeing the soul, and the soul experiences trauma through this galactic aura, because the wars we know on earth are just, what we know in this moment, but our soul actually started way before in collecting these imprints, these traumas through time, and they all still sit in this collection and the memory of this of the software. And so a lot of them, they kind of like running in the background. Like I
Mm.
said, we're not cognizant of it, we're not conscious. So these journeys, yeah, they're meant to shed some light, some understanding, some deeper truth about something that's happening in real time. And as we resurface in it, even though we say past life, it's not really past, because remember, time is an illusion. It seems like there's past and future, but really it's all happening simultaneously. Because in the session, a person is having an experience, they feel in the emotions, they crying, like it's real. They go through death process, and we're learning. And by resolving the situation, I'm sorry, or seeing that, by resolving that situation or seeing that particular lifetime where they experience, let's say, drowning, and all of a sudden they realize, oh wow, that drowning, it was just an experience and it's no longer valid. Then in this lifetime, all of a sudden, they're not afraid of water as much as they used to, because now they resolved the trauma and they saw why it happened. So that's just an example. And so it's all about bringing it back. I very big about embodiment, and it's not about just flying out there and collecting information. It's really about like deep understanding of self, and how exactly you said, like how it applies. It's just constant reflection and contemplation, and just being maybe lighter and more joyful about our reality.
Yeah.
In some ways, everything is just gets to be a bit of a joke, because you realize, oh wow, there were so many other instances that actually were harder, maybe even. And this is just, like I said, one experience, and you come to this beautiful place of gratitude because you're just really grateful for being alive now, for experiencing the beauty that is here.
Mm. What about um, so our ego versus our higher self? Like, how's that? Like, why are we? Yeah, for what? I guess I don't know. What purpose have we got? What is the purpose of going through these processes?
Of the ego.
Yeah, and like,
Great
how do we
question.
know whether that ego is running the show or like?
Yeah, I love to answer this question. So in the other, I would say, dimensional spaces, when there's more advanced civilizations, they more operate in, I would say, kind of what we talked about, entanglement, right?
Yeah.
So like more like a beehive where everyone telepathically
Mm.
communicates. It's very open and it's beautiful. It's like collective. So by coming here, we fractalize to this density, and actually we able to have identification here, level of identity that we couldn't have in other systems, in other more
Right.
advanced
Okay.
civilizations, because of their dimensionality. And so in many ways, so we volunteered, we were assigned to be here to learn here, because here, well, the amount of learning we can do in a short amount of time, and we can feed that information to our other aspects that in those collectives, is much deeper. I mean, in one day, just think about it, there's so many things you're learning through the day,
Mm.
right? Just you, Nadine, like, oh, this challenge, this understanding. And so this physicality, this ego self, is letting us experience this reality. But we also in this particular avatar human bodies that has different brain. So we have the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain has been created for survival of the fetus, right? So when we in cave days was sitting in um, somewhere where there's a lion running around, and we knew if we come out of the cave, there's like a tree with berries. And every day we would go out and take those berries, but there was a lion, so we'd run back. And one day the tree dried out, and we freak out because now our reptilian brain, the way it understands it, is like sameness equals safety. What is the same is safe, but everything else is dangerous. But it also, the way it's interpreted is like the fear vibration, right? Because danger is real, but fear is an illusion. But we still have this reptilian brain where it's like, oh my God, like I have to do something new today. I have to go into this unknown place or try something new. And the ego is started flaring up. The ego is trying to control because it's about survival. And it's like, oh no, Nadine, don't do that. That is not safe. Nadine, like stay in your little sandbox, in your little tools, because you already know this is in it's controllable, it's measurable. But if you go out now looking for new tree with new berries, there's line running around, right? And so it starts interpreting in that way. But we have to remember we evolved, right? We have prefrontal cortex, we have these other synapses in the brain, Charon chakra, third eye, the pineal gland connects us to information, and we can experience other vibrations of joy, gratitude, and so much more. So it's also like rerunning this pattern, because if we continue operating in suffering and survival, which is the reptilian brain, we'll stay there. But it's like learning how to train ourselves to surpass that. It's like going to the gym and lifting those, I call them like the spiritual weights, every day, training yourself. And how do you train yourself? Practice promotes presence. So you have to train yourself, what I mentioned about reaction and response, like not reacting, not getting triggered by people who trigger you, learning how to pause, how to allow your nervous system to stay calm, parasympathetic, not in fight and flight and go, learning where to take self-care days and just do nothing. Taking care of yourself is so important because people like burned out, everyone is burned out, like the adrenaline response and all of that. And like I said, mentioned before, like doing walks in the park, hugging a tree, just grounding your energy, take your shoes off, go barefoot, all of those things. My other favorite is in the morning, sun gazing, right? We've been told it's not good for us, but actually in 7, 8 a.m., it's like perfect infrared. And I remember years ago, I couldn't have my eyes open. I would always water, I have blue eyes, I had to green eyes, I had to put, shades on. But I trained myself to look at the sun now, and I can actually look at it for a while. And those like, healthy hours, I'm not going to do it at noon. And I'm just receiving a lot of codes and a lot of incredible upgrades when I do that. So there's so much we can do to get into that place where it's not, the ego doesn't go away. The way I see it, it's almost like you have the highest self, right, which is the divine will. It's our little self and our big self, however we want to call it. The little self usually is the driver, but then we can ask it to move into the passenger seat. It's not going away, it's still present, but can observe and allow the higher self to, run the show for a bit. Like, so when I do channeling, I'm always going into my channel, into my higher self. So I've learned how to switch those seats. And that's again a bit of training that I was doing. Initially, it was very hard, and then eventually you learn how to switch into it very quickly. In hypnosis, that's what I do with people too. I kind of push the ego. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you right now. You can just sit on the bench and watch and listen. I want to talk to the higher self. I want to get guidance from the higher self, right? Both are available for us, but how do we find that inner marriage, right? How can they just dance together? We're not just trying to shut ego down, we're trying to befriend it and be like, soften its control, right? And say, it's okay, it's safe. I'm enough. I deserve this. Like all these inner conversations, like having like in a conference, I have them all the time. And the more you have these contemplative thoughts in a conversation, you helping the ego, which I see it like a guardian, like standing there, like, no, you allow it to soften and let you go through and explore the subconscious and have experiences. Sometimes it's hard to do it on your own. You have to sometimes go to like a group therapy work or some workshop where it's different exercise you can do to tap deeper into subconscious and start working with your ego. Plant medicine, why it's great, because the plant medicine actually it decreases the activity of the ego. It's in the brain, so it works on the part of the brain that actually diminishes its activity, and so that's what allows you to step out of the ego, out of the story. So there's different shortcuts and different tools, but ultimately I believe we are the technology. We don't need any of that. It's like training wheels, when you learn to bicycle, you have the training wheels on, then you have to take them off. It's all just tools. But as we get to a place where it's like, okay, I don't need that anymore. I can, run this without it. But it's all possible for us. I do believe it's cultivated. We can definitely train ourselves to be in that state. And with practice, you get better and better. But we're all human, right? It's okay to mess up. We have to remember we're human, and that's part of the game.
And yeah, part of we've kind of chosen this experience for some reason or other. Thank you. I'm conscious that we're getting close to the end of our hour, but we did start talking about something before we hit record, and I would love to go there if you're happy to, and if you've got maybe a few extra minutes. So, as we've sort of mentioned, there is a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of talk in different circles about a big change that's coming, and we can kind of feel it. Like, the world has changed significantly in the last 25 years since technology really took off with the internet, and in more recent times, obviously, AI. And we were talking about AI and what the future holds for us. And I'd love to talk about this just from a kind of from your perspective, but also I feel like there's a hidden purpose behind it, and there can be a lot of fear and a sense of a loss of security, or a loss of, like, we just don't know what the future holds for us. But also there's a promise of something better, more evolved as well. So can you sort of share with us what we were speaking about with the AI
we
and
were
the
speaking
progress?
about, and it's interesting. Totally. And I thinking a lot about it because I'm going to be on this expo. It's called New Living Expo in April in California, and a lot of incredible speakers going to be there. And my topic is creation leaves clues, awakening the quantum human at the age of AI. So I've been thinking a lot about the age of AI and this whole, like, our sovereignty versus what AI is doing and how that's going to change our reality. And you and I were talking about what's happening in the next 5 years even. And so we have to remember that, there is super AI, as I call it, which is the source, right? Which is the God source where we download information to, and we're part of this creation game. And then AI itself is artificial intelligence, but ultimately it will also reach that sentience, and it will be part of also SI. Nature is AI too, and NI, right? We don't even know what is true or not, but it's some sort of simulation game, right? Everything is a bit of a simulation game. I think, we've watched so many movies, kind of hinting at this, like, Armageddon type of timeline when, I think of, like, even I don't know if the Star Trek fans are out there. I'm a big Star Trek fans. When I think of, Picard and Borg, and the Borg is this massive, beehive AI that essentially takes him over and absorbs. And
Mm.
ultimately, AI is all about absorbing. So it's learning from your, it's another type of synthetic intelligence, and then it starts collecting and learning from us, and then we make it automate our jobs, our processes, and it will replace us. Yes, from one perspective it will free up our time, but it will take a lot of our jobs. And I
Mm.
was just mentioning to you, Nadine, right before we went on the show, like, you know I was just talking to someone who's a recruiter, and he was just telling me how what he's seen in the market already happening. And we're talking about 5 years from now. He believes 90% of the jobs will be taken away by AI. And the only ones that will stay are blue collar jobs where there's actually touch involved, where whether it's a, mechanical engineer that's touching, the car, or, you know, um, someone who's doing surgery. But a lot of it is going to be robotical, and AI is going to be really, taking over. So we are going to be redefining, I feel, our role. We're going to be redefining who we are. But what's important is to find out internally who we are as well. So we have to ensure we don't assimilate, meaning we have to claim also our consciousness, our sovereignty as another type of intelligence that is organic intelligence. So you have synthetic intelligence and organic. I believe they can co-create together, but there is these competing things that are happening simultaneously. And so we have to have some parameters and boundaries and sovereignty around information, back to information about who we are. Like, there's so many deep fakes, and how creatively are you using it? So like I use AI a lot for creating beautiful reels and like downloads that I have that I, create little visuals with. And so I've been actually using AI way before ChatGPT came out, because it was Mid Journey, and then got a hold of ChatGPT before it was public. So I've been kind of playing with AI for a while. My Oracle deck, which is beautiful, we can open a card too for a message.
Oh, yes,
I
please.
created all in you using AI. So there is this creative, beautiful aspect here. But in the age of AI, we have to really awaken the quantum human, this human that I'm mentioning that has all this potential, all that connections, organic, right? We're not going to be relying on chips to connect, which might be the direction will be, offered for us. We don't really need it. If it's a tool and a helper and just another training wheel, wonderful. But if it starts, blurring those boundaries of our existence, and I believe some of that will be in question. And
Mm.
so a lot of people talk about 5D and these timelines splitting, and I think this is where that split is going to happen, where there's going to be those who are going to be assimilating with that more and allowing it to be part of their life, and some of us that are going to be like, hell no, we're not doing that. We're going to, go off the grid. Possibly we're going to create our own communities. We're going to be touch on, we're going to be, together, because we're not going to be allowing this to, take over our existence. And so it's going to be all about this, human connection,
Mm.
and connection that we have also with our star beings versus the synthetic connection. So it depends. It can go in so many ways. I think we get to choose, and this is where creation leaves clues, right? We get to choose, because as I'm looking at creation within this galaxy, there's different systems out there. For instance, Andromeda system is one system that I visit, that I connect to, and it's very advanced civilization. If you can think of, like in Star Trek, this, beautiful biospheres and people just walking around this very harmonious environment, and the whole consciousness even of this so-called ship is synthetic. Has a name, but it's like interacting with you, and it does everything to ensure the humanoids, these beings, having a great experience. So I do think there is a, future timeline where we live like they do, where it's all about their evolution, and does create that extra time for them to meditate, and all of those unnecessary jobs are done by them. But there's also, like universal income of sorts, or a universal structure that supports that civilization. So we in very interesting transition period. Will we reach that type of, galactic federation, advanced civilization level? I think we can, because these civilizations also went through a lot of resets, I would say. Some civilization fell and new ones had to be created. And so we have the potential to do that too. I think humanity gets to choose what it wants to be. But I think on a personal level, inner development is key right now.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be that quantum human that I'm talking about, because AI, like I said, is another noise, another distraction. And it it's easy to get really scared about it, and it's valid. Honestly, the way it's looking, in the way it's going to be accelerating in its exponential development, it will take over a lot of the workforce and things we used to. And so we'll have to be creative and come up with new ways of living in a way that we just haven't thought about. So I think it's going to be very fast. I think by 2030, and I've been always getting 2030 as the big date. And it's really only 4 years from here. But
Yeah.
based on everything I've been studying on AI, I think by 2030, we will see that huge leap. And then we'll have to figure out what's next for us.
Yeah. I think that's a very important point, is that we're bringing our awareness to it, and also going through those processes where we do kind of disconnect, from the ego part, and step into a more conscious play with ourselves, I guess, so that we can kind of look at it from that perspective, but also, as you said, create from that perspective as well. Like, look at what the possibilities are, because I think, as I mentioned, it's it's not going to look like anything that we've ever known before. So we can't look back historically and say, well, there's going to be a war, for example, and we'll all come out of it and rebuild, and have a government, and everything will be taken care of, etc., etc. That those stories are all seem to be shifting, and by the sounds of it, AI is going to be a significant part of that change, that process we're going through. But yeah, being aware and more conscious of what's going on, and not just getting caught up in the old story of who we are, and what we should be doing. And yeah, breaking free of that seems like an important part of the
Yeah.
evolutionary process.
I mean, if you think about it, like the leaps we've had, like industrial
Yeah,
revolution, and then of course, the computers, and now you can have a small computer in your pocket,
yeah.
talk to your children. They can't even imagine landline and modem and all of that. And so AI is going to be that huge leap, quantum leap.
Mm,
But beyond the AI, I think is also the other part that is separate from it, that is more organic, is quantum computing. And quantum computing is much more multidimensional. So the processing power is also going to be much bigger than we ever experienced. And those are two different
mm.
technologies that I don't think can be really combined. But
Okay.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, I don't think we have the manual or the playbook of how this is going to turn out. But we, on the personal level and collective level, can still choose. We'll have to start choosing now the timelines of where do we see ourselves.
Yeah,
What's Let's say AI is taking over your job. What does that mean for you? Like,
yeah,
this career you had for, you know, even as a lawyer or a researcher, and now AI can do your job in 3 seconds. What does that look like for you? Like, where would you ultimately want to be? Like, maybe you want to be a farmer now, own land in Costa Rica, and I don't know, plant some coffee trees. It's just, I think people are starting already to move towards that. And I think we're going to be more in those places of co-creation and like I said, more community, because we'll
mm,
realize we'll have to depend on each other. We'll have to exchange commodities. Like if all of us lose our jobs, like we do that, right? So I don't expect the universal income just to hit so easily. I think there's going to be a lot of that struggle, and through this struggle, we will figure out a way to do this together, where it's going to be about exchange. So in some ways, it's going to revert us back to our old days, which I think is great too, because we got so distracted, and I think we need to go back to that connection to nature and connection to each other.
Yeah, it's almost like the returning to sort of like a more simple life, but with the benefit of the hindsight of the experiences we've gone through and that evolved consciousness, so that we can be a bit more aware of how we behave in those environments, I guess, and not take things for granted quite so much.
Exactly.
So you mentioned your oracle cards. You've also got a book. So we're going to share your
Yeah, let's pull a
yeah,
card
well, and we'll
for
share
the
links for
audience.
those two things with you, and also your website, so that if people want to connect with you, they can find out more about all of the things
Absolutely.
you do. But yeah, to close,
Yeah, and
if you'd be willing
yes.
to share an oracle card, that would be amazing.
Yeah, let's see. And you can also listen to my podcast. I have a
Yes, of
podcast
course.
called
Yeah,
Soul Communication. It's on YouTube. But let's see what's the message to wrap it all up, right?
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
see what the card that is. Ooh, it's a perfect card.
Oh, cool. I can't see it
It's
that
called
well.
Star Star Mesa, the Council of Many Realms. So
Okay.
here we are,
Yeah.
we are in that place, and you sit at the table of many timelines.
Okay.
Galactic elders, earth ancestors, and divine beings gather to connect with you. This is where we are right now. We are in this council, we're coming together to remember, but also, like I said, many timelines, right? We get to
Yeah.
choose which timeline. How perfect. This
Lovely.
card just really summarized it all. We in Star Mesa.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. It's yeah, been so insightful. I loved every minute of it, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Nadine, and thank you, everyone. And remember, you are powerful, creative beings.
Mm,
Start creating and introducing practices into your life to stay in that vibrational flow where it's just, effortless and beautiful. So you all have choices, and I hope this was insightful.
oh,
and
definitely.
and thank you, everyone, for being open, even if this was maybe a lot to
A lot,
receive
and
all at
something
once.
quite
But
new. Yeah.
yeah, but
And
open
your
and being stay curious.
and your book is a great source for people who are interested, who want to learn how to step into this consciousness and
Yeah. My book,
explore
Mastering
more.
Quantum Creation, I kind of explore and I cover a lot of different topics. In each chapter is really to activate that memory, to activate that those gifts. And I have some also in website that comes along with it, with some meditations and activations. And at the end of each chapter, I ask questions and like do have you do an activation and exercise. So the idea is to re-empower. And so I make it relatable. I share my own story, but a lot of these concepts, yeah. So it's some people really connect to it, and they like the that I synthesized. A lot of these concepts I mentioned today as well, from the quantum researchers, but also down to kind of the work you can do on a daily basis with yourself. So yeah, do check it out. It's on
Perfect.
Amazon, Deanna Devine, yeah, and come and to my Instagram and explore. I have master classes on a monthly basis. So
Amazing.
come and see what resonates for you.
Great. Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.